The Machiavellian view of love, a calculated risk. They often tell you that love is the ultimate answer, that if you commit deeply, give selflessly, and remain soft, the world will in turn offer you protection, respect, and reciprocity. But Machiavelli held a different view. He didn't see love as a generous gift, but rather as a significant liability. To him, love was like an open door, an exposed vulnerability ripe for exploitation. He argued that a man who bases his survival on love will ultimately be destroyed by it, whereas a man who commands fear has a greater chance of survival. This isn't because love is inherently bad, but because it tends to be blind while the world operates with sharp, unyielding sight. Where love begins, strategic thinking often ends. Consider how we typically engage with those we love, our family, friends, and romantic partners. We share our deepest thoughts, and secrets offer forgiveness readily, and often rationalize their actions, even when those actions cause us pain. Why do we do this? Because love, in its essence, strips away our emotional filters. We stop calculating potential risks. We cease protecting our own position. We operate under the assumption that if we'd never hurt them, they too would never hurt us. Machiavelli would have found this line of reasoning naive, perhaps even laughable. He understood that even your closest confidants might betray you if it serves their self-interest, especially when they know you won't retaliate. The true danger isn't lurking among your declared enemies. It resides in familiarity. Your adversaries often fear your silence, your unpredictability. But the people you love, they grow comfortable with your gentle nature, your constant availability, your unquestioning compliance. Over time, they start to expect your loyalty without earning it, demanding instant forgiveness and reacting with anger if you ever try to pull back. This happens because love, when left unguarded, can inadvertently transform you into a mere tool. It might not be intentional, but it is in Machiavelli's view an inevitable outcome. He didn't advocate for the eradication of love from one's life. Instead, he believed in its containment. You should love, but with clear boundaries, a ceiling, a defined cost, and a deliberate plan. Without such limitations, love morphs into emotional exposure, and for a powerful individual, emotional exposure is the most exploitable position they can find themselves in. Cold-blooded awareness beyond cruelty. Let's clarify a crucial distinction. To be cold-blooded is not to be cruel. It is fundamentally to be aware. It means being acutely aware of how people's dynamics shift when they become too intimate. It's recognizing what you forfeit when you become overly transparent emotionally. And it's understanding what love unchecked can evolve into a sense of entitlement. Machiavelli grasped a truth that often eludes the masses. Those who love you unconditionally can still hurt you even if it's accidental. However, those who remain close, purely for what you provide, will hurt you deliberately. Therefore, the solution isn't to cease loving altogether. It's to stop leading with love. The moment your primary mode of interaction is governed by feeling, you surrender your leverage. Have you ever questioned why your family doesn't take your advice seriously? Or why your friends stop listening once they've gotten what they wanted? Why your partner seems to have no fear of losing you? It's because they perceive that your love consistently overrides your logic. They anticipate that you'll always apologize first, that you'll return, that you'll explain and defend your feelings, and that you'll never truly enforce consequences. This makes you utterly predictable, soft, and safe. Machiavelli famously warned us, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Yet when it comes to your closest relationships, cultivating fear feels inherently wrong. So you stop engaging in the implicit power game, and in doing so, you allow others to start winning it. The unseen cost of emotional warmth, the cost of staying emotionally warm without boundaries, is significant. You will find yourself lowering your standards, accepting behaviors you would never tolerate from strangers, and offering forgiveness without demanding genuine reform. You'll likely stay silent to maintain a superficial sense of peace, but the peace you're preserving is merely the comfort others derive from your weakness. And when someone is comfortable with your weakness, they will inevitably test it, prod it, and ultimately exploit it. You don't need to extinguish your capacity for love. You simply need to learn to love with boundaries so sharp they cut. Allow your warmth to be visible, but ensure it's always backed by an invisible wall. Because the moment your love becomes truly unconditional, so too does your potential for pain. Strangers rarely break you. It's almost always the ones you've permitted to get closest. Machiavelli understood the reason for this. He wasn't paranoid, he was precise. He knew that the individuals privy to your triggers, your limits, and your vulnerabilities were the most likely to exploit them. Not out of malice, but because their fear of you has dissipated. And when fear departs from a relationship, respect soon follows. 5 tests of undermined boundaries. Let's delve into specific scenarios that reveal when your boundaries are being eroded and your power undermined. Test 1, the entitlement test. They begin to stop thanking you. They cease asking for permission before taking liberties. They no longer consider the extent of what you're giving. Why? Because in their minds, you're already theirs. They genuinely believe you'll always help, always show up, always say yes. And the moment you deviate from this expectation, you're suddenly labeled selfish, accused of having changed, or deemed cold. But Machiavelli would advise, let them speak. This is merely the sound of someone grieving the loss of their unearned advantage. Test 2, the guilt reflex. You attempt to set a boundary, and their immediate response is emotional. You say no, and they dredge up past favors or sacrifices. You prioritize your own time, and they accuse you of being distant. This is no longer a genuine conversation, it's a maneuver. They've learned that if they can make you feel guilty, they can coerce you into reversing any decision. And if you even slightly flinch, they'll register it, filing that tactic away for future use. This isn't love, it's emotional negotiation. If you cannot hold your ground when guilt is weaponized, then you never truly had a boundary to begin with. Test 3, the loyalty loop. You've consistently shown loyalty support and unwavering consistency. But when you are the sole party doing so, this behavior becomes an expectation, not a valued gesture. They stop checking in, cease reciprocating, and begin showing up only when it perfectly suits their needs. When you finally decide to withdraw, they panic. Not because they genuinely love or miss you, but because they've just lost their emotional insurance policy. Machiavelli would tell you, if your loyalty is predictable, it will be exploited before it is appreciated. Test 4, just this once. This seemingly innocuous phrase is incredibly dangerous. It starts small. Can you cover this for me? Can you cancel your plans for me? Can you overlook this mistake? always just this once. But the moment you yield, it's never just once. You transform into the person who can be bent because you've explicitly demonstrated you won't break. They now know your values are negotiable as long as they maintain a semblance of closeness. This isn't love, it's a form of strategic pressure. Test 5. The "you're too harsh" defense. When you communicate clearly and directly, they accuse you of being too cold. When you establish emotional distance, you're stone hearted. When you stop being endlessly patient, you're suddenly heartless. This is their tactic to transform your strength into a perceived sin. But the truth is, they don't miss your warmth. They miss the unrestricted access to the version of you who allowed them to act without consequence. And now that version is gone, they label your new clarity as cruelty. Why would Machiavelli anticipate all these patterns? He would contend that the closer someone stands to you, the more they expect you to absorb their chaos. And if you refuse to do so, they'll brand you as cold. They'll declare you're different. They'll twist your evolution into a betrayal. Let them. Because the individual who constantly fears offending everyone they love will inevitably find themselves surrounded by people who adore how easily they can offend him. The solution: stop proving your goodness. The solution is straightforward. Stop proving your goodness. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your newfound emotional distance. You don't need to defend your detachment or apologize for outgrowing the emotional systems they relied upon. Instead, you simply enforce your boundaries silently, consistently, and without flinching. Let the accusations surface. Allow the discomfort to rise. Because once they truly grasp that the old version of you is gone, they have two choices. They either evolve to meet your new standards, or you let them go. And either outcome inevitably strengthens your position. Being cold-blooded isn't about shutting down your emotions or turning off your heart. It's about defending your power with precision, especially against those who mistakenly assume you'd never use it against them. Because if you fail to protect your own emotional center, you risk becoming an emotional landfill for everyone else's chaotic projections. Machiavelli didn't construct walls to keep people out. He built filters to ascertain who was genuinely worthy of entry. And once someone was inside, their continued presence required constant requalification. Building boundary power. 5 rules for the strategic mind. Let's explore how you can cultivate this very same boundary driven power in your own life. Rule number 1: never explain your emotional distance. You are under no obligation to offer an explanation for needing space, for choosing silence, for saying no, or for withdrawing from toxic patterns. The more you explain, the more you inadvertently hand them emotional leverage. Machiavelli would argue that to explain is to invite negotiation. To act without seeking permission is to unequivocally signal strength. So when confronted with questions like, "Why are you acting differently?" "What happened to us?" or "Why didn't you reach out?" you don't engage in arguments. You don't emotionally unload your reasons. You simply state, "I've recalibrated." That silence, that unwavering refusal to emotionally bleed, will either command genuine respect or starkly reveal who was never capable of offering it in the first place. Rule number 2: set consequences, not conditions. Most people mistakenly set conditions. "Don't talk to me like that again. If you do this, I'll get upset. please don't disrespect me. But Machiavelli would never resort to begging for better behavior. Instead, he designed frameworks that made disrespect inherently costly. You don't just say, don't do that. You show that when you do that, I disappear. And crucially, you don't return the moment they panic. You return only when you decide to, if ever. Boundaries don't plead, they act. That's how they earn their power. Rule number 3: never negotiate through emotion. Once someone discovers that you cry under pressure, panic when ignored, or rush to fix things when they go silent, they will cease respecting your rational mind and instead begin to exploit your emotions. Machiavelli would never tolerate this because emotional clarity is a vital shield. Once that shield is pierced, your opponent no longer targets your intellect, they target your wounds. You protect yourself by becoming unreadable under pressure. This means no lengthy emotionally charged texts, no spontaneous, I just feel like moments, no impulsive re entry into a situation after you've been hurt. Your silence becomes your leverage, your stillness becomes your stance. And if they desire your softness, they'll have to earn it again. Rule number 4: define what you tolerate and never wobble. Most people's boundaries are fluid shifting based on who's asking how long they've known the person or how emotionally exhausted they are. This inconsistency is a profound weakness. It's a form of emotional currency inflation that devalues your self-worth. You need clear black and white rules such as, I don't respond to yelling. Once I've created space, the distance remains until I choose to reopen it. I don't reward apologies without changed behavior. And then you follow through without exception. People don't test what's consistently enforced, they test what's flexible. Machiavelli rarely punished, but when he did, his actions were surgical, cold, and final. You must adopt a similar approach, or they will continue to gamble with your forgiveness. Rule number 5: don't fear being seen as harsh. This is the point where most individuals falter. They recognize they're being used and they feel their peace is being disturbed. But the instant they attempt to enforce a boundary, they're consumed by guilt. This is because society often dictates if you're not endlessly patient, you're cruel. If you don't explain yourself, you're arrogant. If you don't let them back in, you're unforgiving. But Machiavelli didn't fear being labeled. He feared being called easy. And you should too. Let them call you whatever they wish. Let them rewrite your character to fit their own pain. Because when your fear of reputation outweighs your grasp of reality, you surrender your power for mere perception. And perception ultimately changes nothing. You aren't being cold, you're being uncompromising. Love without boundaries inevitably becomes sacrifice, and sacrifice without recognition ultimately descends into slavery. Machiavelli would never allow himself to die on someone else's emotional battlefield. He would observe, withdraw, and only return when his presence was truly respected. That isn't being cold-blooded, that's being in control. This is often where people hesitate. They voice concerns like, but I don't want to become numb. I don't want to lose myself. I'm afraid if I go cold, I won't come back. This fear is legitimate, but it stems from a common misconception confusing cold-blooded strategy with emotional disconnection. Machiavelli didn't lose his humanity. He simply mastered when and how to deploy it. Because in his world, and in yours, feeling everything means being controlled by everything. Cold-blooded thinking control not cruelty. Cold blooded thinking isn't cruelty, it's control. You don't cease to feel, you simply stop reacting emotionally when your position demands careful calculation. You still possess the capacity to love, care, connect, and reflect, but these actions are now contained within the walls you've meticulously built. These walls serve to prevent you from becoming another pawn in someone else's emotional game. Being cold blooded doesn't signify a lack of warmth. It means you precisely choose when to turn the heat on and for whom. That's not emotional absence, it's a high level of emotional intelligence. Control begins with your internal emotional framing. You must fundamentally shift how you process hurt. When someone disrespects you, you don't immediately react, you calculate. When someone lies to you, you don't spiral into distress, you observe. When someone withdraws, you don't chase them, you interpret their actions. This internal dialogue transforms everything. You move from the reactive question, why did they do this to me, to the strategic inquiry, what did this just teach me about them? Machiavelli would take an act of betrayal and ask, what can I extract from this moment that will make me stronger? Because the cold blooded thinker perceives pain as an opportunity for positioning, not as a personal loss. You must master the art of slow reactions. Do you know what truly intimidates people the most? It's not outright anger shouting or even direct revenge. It's the individual who witnesses betrayal and says nothing at all. They wait. They create distance. They remove access not with furious outburst, but with chilling indifference. When you react too quickly, you're not dangerous. You're utterly predictable. Machiavelli never acted on impulse, he acted on advantage. He taught us that power isn't about possessing the strongest emotion, it's about possessing the strongest timing. Cultivate a strategic pain mindset. Every instance of feeling disrespected, disappointed, or replaced presents you with two clear options: take it personally or transform it into actionable intelligence. The cold blooded mind doesn't dwell on what it has lost. Instead, it meticulously catalogs who is capable of causing you loss and adjusts access accordingly. It converts pain into clarity distance, into power, and loss into evolution. Because when you are emotionally reactive, you empower the other person to dictate your interpretation of reality. But when you absorb silently and strategically, you become the kind of person no one dares to cross twice. You don't need to lose your heart. You need to protect it with a system. Most people approach love as if it were a war, yet they enter the battlefield unarmed. They declare, I'll give them everything. I'll love them through their worst. They'll eventually come back when they realize. But Machiavelli understood that hope is not a strategy, and kindness devoid of discipline is in essence suicide in disguise. So you don't close your heart entirely, you build a gate, and behind that gate there's a strict rule. Only those who consistently prove their worth gain access to my vulnerability. Your warmth must be earned, not simply assumed. And your care must be conditional, not because you are cruel, but because you inherently possess value. The final shift, embracing misunderstanding. The ultimate shift is accepting that you will be misunderstood. This is often the biggest hurdle that prevents individuals from stepping into their true power. They desire to be strategic, yet they also crave popularity. They want to command respect, but they also wish to remain perceived as nice. Machiavelli would state, if you require others to agree with your evolution, You have already surrendered the freedom to evolve itself. You will undoubtedly be labeled as cold. You will be seen as detached. You will inevitably lose people who cherished the version of you who always bled emotionally on command. Let them leave. Their discomfort isn't your burden. It's their loss of access to the old you. And that old version of you was unfortunately all too easy to hurt. Cold blooded does not equate to heartless. Detached does not mean disconnected. Strong does not imply selfish. However, these are precisely the labels they will attach to you the moment you cease overgiving, over explaining, and over loving. You will suddenly be deemed too much, too sharp, too different. This is where many people falter. They either remain soft and are perpetually used, or they become rigidly harsh and lose their true selves in the process. Machiavelli advocated for a middle path, the path of strategic empathy, cultivating power without becoming a monster. 6 key steps. Let's explore how you can maintain your power and influence without transforming into the very monster they might accuse you of being. Step 1. Define your intention, not their perception. Before taking any action, ask yourself, am I setting this boundary to hurt them or to protect myself? Am I creating distance because I'm genuinely cold or because my energy is being drained? Am I choosing silence because I'm passive aggressive or because I've already communicated enough? If your honest answer points to self protection rather than retaliation, you're on the correct path. Machiavelli wasn't concerned with appearing noble. His sole focus was on maintaining his position, and individuals who can maintain power without resorting to cruelty are exceptionally rare. That is your role now. Step 2. Show mercy without losing your stance. There's absolutely nothing wrong with extending another chance, with being kind without being naive, or with offering help to someone you've previously pulled away from. If they've demonstrated genuine growth, the danger doesn't lie in the act of mercy itself. The danger lies in forgetting why you pulled away in the first place. So when you offer assistance or forgiveness, do not remove the established standard. Do not erase the prior consequence. Do not return without clear terms. You can offer softness, but you must never surrender. That is the delicate balance. Step 3. Control your presence, not just your distance. Many mistakenly believe that simply withdrawing equates to power. However, Machiavelli understood that your presence, when strategically controlled, is far more influential. You appear, briefly speak with precision and clarity, and then exit while others still keenly feel your absence. You become the subtle reminder of your value, not an enemy, not an emotional wreck, not a source of drama. You are the calm, the individual who consistently remains a few steps ahead, the one who departed without creating chaos, yet fundamentally altered the atmosphere of the room simply by leaving. That is authority without aggression. Step 4. Maintain standards, not control. You cannot force people to respect you. What you can do is make disrespect an expensive proposition. This means you don't demand apologies. You don't force communication. You don't try to make people understand. Instead, you withdraw access. You revoke emotional privileges. You allow the silence to perform the necessary calculations for them. If they then rise to meet your standard, you can re engage. If not, then they never truly belonged beside your evolution in the first place. Step 5. Let your kindness become selective, not exhausted. You don't cease being kind. You simply stop being careless with your kindness. You dispense it gradually after careful observation with internal checkpoints and with clear exit strategies should things go astray. And if others label this approach as transactional, let them, because unconditional giving sounds noble and virtuous until it is systematically used as a weapon against your peace. From now on, you give only what aligns with your personal vision, energy, and emotional well being. That isn't selfish, that is self command. Step 6: don't defend your boundaries, enforce them. If they accuse you of being cold distant or of switching up, simply say nothing. You don't need to engage in a debate about your transformation. You just keep walking your path. Power isn't proved through conversation, it's revealed through consistency. And if they miss the old you, let them remember that version. But they don't gain access to the elevated you until they demonstrate they've outgrown the old version of themselves too. Balance and lasting power. A lifestyle. Balance isn't a line, it's a filter. You aren't meant to become an unfeeling stone. You're meant to become a mirror, reflecting others, clearly offering warmth only when it has been genuinely earned. You stay calm no matter who initiates conflict. That is Machiavellian empathy, strategic, conditional, and unwavering in its boundaries. You've now absorbed the warnings. You've identified the patterns. You've outgrown the softer version of yourself that was too vulnerable to be truly safe. Now, the final step isn't just a theory, it's a lifestyle. Machiavelli didn't merely theorize about power, he embodied it. And if you intend to remain cold blooded in a world that constantly pressures you to shrink back into emotional servitude, you require distinct rules, consistent rituals, and unwavering repetition. This is how you embed your boundaries permanently without ever needing to announce them again. Habit 1: move without emotional announcement. You don't overtly tell people, "I'm cutting you off," "I'm creating space," or "I'm focusing on myself." You simply move. You slow down your replies. You stop over explaining your decisions. You do not re engage once you've strategically withdrawn. This is because genuine boundaries don't require elaborate speeches. They are etched in your consistent actions, not in your social media captions. Machiavelli didn't need others to verbally agree with his silence. He simply ensured they felt it. Habit 2: stay polite, never over familiar. Your warmth should not be an automatic response. It must be earned and continuously maintained. Greet others with composure. Offer compliments with genuine purpose. Exit a conversation or interaction while you are still respected and desired. This meticulous balance keeps your public image disciplined and pristine. Why? Because the emotionally familiar man is easy to manipulate and use. But the individual who remains precise and measured in their interactions is virtually impossible to control. Your cold blooded nature doesn't stem from being harsh, it originates from being structured. Habit 3: reflect before reacting. Always. When someone disappoints you, you don't immediately snap, you observe. When someone crosses your line, you don't escalate the conflict, you catalog the incident. Being cold blooded isn't about lacking emotion, it's about never allowing emotion to dictate your actions before thought. This deliberate pause, this internal filter, becomes your new competitive edge. And when others around you spiral into panic, shout in frustration, or sulk in resentment, your unwavering stillness will intimidate them far more profoundly than any emotional outburst ever could. Habit 4. Never reopen what you closed without requalification. You ended that friendship, relationship, or partnership for a specific reason. Do not return without a fresh, valid reason that demonstrates genuine change. If you previously ended a connection, let the other party re earn the version of you that granted them access. Far too many people return to old patterns simply because they apologized, or it's been a while, or with the naive hope that maybe it'll be different this time. No, time alone doesn't heal betrayal, standards do. And if they haven't demonstrably grown, then you haven't missed anything worthwhile. Habit 5. Treat your peace as a private strategy, not a public statement. Do not turn your emotional maturity into a marketing stunt. You aren't cultivating a cold blooded demeanor so that people will admire you. You are doing so because you want people to respect what they cannot access at will. You live quietly. You protect your inner world deeply. You allow the tangible results of your self control to speak volumes louder than any video post or quote ever could. That, in Machiavelli's eyes, is the true finish line: total power without the need for explanation.